we spent quite a long time trying to work out how we could come and live here. We sort of, and it was difficult because it was nearly all public housing. There weren't opportunities to move here. It was, we used to sort of wander around and try and work out how does one get to move to Millers Point or Dawes Point, and eventually we found a way, yes. There's something very sad that for the last 3 years there's been a constant procession of moving vans, and they pull up and you think, oh, so-and-so's moving, such and such is moving, and some of the people who move, they tell you in advance, but because we've had this campaign to try and save the community and save a diversity in this area, some people felt like they couldn't even tell us, like they were sort of letting us down. But we've always said to people, look, at the crunch, you've got to do what's right for you. It's such a pressure on them. So you let people go and you support them in their decision making, whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
It's been incredibly hard for a lot of them. Mostly they've been so distraught by the end of the process, they've just slipped away. But and in fact, although again something rarely talked about, it's actually killed quite a few people around here. Whether they died as a result of how they were treated. We believe there's a couple of suicides. It's way above the average for such an area, population. And you're never quite sure, do you make something of that, do you leave it alone? But it gives you something of the feeling of living around here, that it's high stakes that we're playing for all the time. Our neighbour Myra, we see her probably 2 or 3 times a week, and we speak to her every day on the phone. And at the moment she's standing very strongly in the face of all of this, but there's now down to 2 people left in the Sirius building, and she's one of them, and housing and the government are hounding her, and I fear they're going to do something awful to her. And a little bit she says, look, she's a tough old bird, she can take it, but is she really? Is it? We say we'll do whatever we can to protect her, but there's a responsibility there as well. If she's going to stand up like this, how are we going to make sure that she is not victimised out of this, that she's not made to really suffer to the point where a 90-year-old person, they need a bit of care, a lot of care. You don't treat them harshly. And one of the things about Myra, if you move her out of here, her independent life is over. She's blind, she can barely walk, but nonetheless she goes out most days on her own. And she has a lot of people, somebody will pick her up tomorrow and take her to church and bring her back, and that's Robert Champion, who Myra will then feed. She'll make lunch for him, and his wife recently died. He lives up on the North Shore, comes through to this church. Myra's been there for a parishioner there for 50 years, but also not only is she in the congregation, she used to run the military museum there on her own for more than 30 years. This is a place where she's connected. She goes around to the community centre a couple of times a week, meets people, does courses, all sorts of things. This is the place where she can live a really good and full life, and I want to keep her in our community. I don't want to let her go, so we'll fight to keep her.
So
What time did you, when, I know you're in Erskine Street, which was this corner of the city, but a little bit further away. When did you actually move to Millers Point?
about 1970.
To Millers Point?
Yeah, to
Right.
Trinity Avenue.
Right, because that's right on the time.
That's really, they call that Dawes Point round there.
Yes, it is, you're right, of course, but nobody else knows where Dawes Point is.
38 years I lived in Trinity Avenue. Well, that was a terrace with steps up the front. And this friend came over from New Zealand. She started screaming at me and she said, I'm not coming to visit you until you move, because you could see me struggling up the steps. And anyhow, it took me 10 months to get here.
Yeah.
And it was just before Christmas. I thought, oh, we won't be in before Christmas. But I moved in here on the 11th of December 2008. Well, they've just broken up a wonderful community. That's the worst thing. I mean, what's happened to people, as you may have heard, that people have committed suicide, people have died after they moved, and they're very unhappy when they move, and the ones I know one girl in particular, she said that she wanted to be near family, so she went up somewhere like Lismore and it didn't work out, so she's moved I don't know how many times now, but after the first move they don't pay for you, of course. And then,
How do you feel about what the government's doing to Sirius and the public
I
housing?
think they're jolly ridiculous and they've got to be brought to justice somehow or other.
Yeah. That's,
And on Sunday, my friend that just rang me up, when he's given the prayers, he always includes me in the prayers. And one Sunday, of course, St Philip's and Holy Trinity have become one, and they call us Church Hill. And it was a Sunday when Justin, who's the main minister, was there preaching, and he heard Robert, who just rang me, preach, pray for me. And so he said to me, "Myron, what can I do?" And I said, "Write to the Premier." It's hard for them to find the right place for me to go to, and they reckon they haven't got anything in the city, but they play their cards close to their chest so you don't know what's going on. When they told me I had to go out to Mount Druitt, and I jumped up and down and said I wasn't going, because the other word was the kids could be wards of the state and the government have to pay for them. Trinity Avenue, where I went, was empty for 4 years, so it's been mismanaged for years. Never mind Maritime Services Board or Housing, they all mismanage them. Well, look at this place being empty all this time and there's people sleeping in the street. What's the matter with them?
And the waiting list for public housing is at an all-time high.
I know, and I mean they've got the hide to move us out and pay for our move. Hello?
Yeah, no, it's